Hello, and welcome to the On-Premise IT Roundtable, the only podcast that dares to be both on topic and on location. My name is Tom Hollingsworth, and I am a part of the Gestalt IT family, and each episode we bring you an interesting technical topic or idea, a premise, if you will, discussed by some industry luminaries. I'd like to take a moment for everyone to introduce themselves before we get to this episode's premise. David?
Hi, my name is David Chappa. Thanks for having me. I'm with the CTE Group. I'm the Chief Analyst and Founder. You can find me on Twitter at David Chappa, and you can find my blog at thecte.net. Thanks for having me, Tom.
All right. Thanks, David. Ian?
Hi, thank you. My name's Ian Sanderson. I'm a technical pre-sales consultant for a company called TrueStack. You can find me on Twitter, handle at Ian0x0R, and I blog at snurf.co.uk.
All right. Thank you, Ian. And Rohan?
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. My name is Rohan Nagi. I'm from VMware, Senior Technical Product Manager. You can find me on Twitter at Lifeboy.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. Let's jump into this episode's premise. We have been spending the last several months not working in an office. Most of us have been working from home or working from some other location, and it's had its challenges. Now, a lot of people will tell you that it's difficult to figure out how to find time at your house to do things and how to balance work-life things. But realistically speaking, there's another big thing that we have to talk about, and that's network connectivity, because it used to be nice to have good network connectivity, but right now we're just hoping we have network connectivity at all. And that's a huge challenge when working from home. So the episode's premise today is that working from home presents a lot of networking challenges. Now, David, you've been doing this for a while. Why don't you kind of give us an overview, what are some of the issues that you've had when it comes to business continuity and things like that in lockdown? Because I know for a fact with me, if my internet gets cut during the day, I'm basically done. There is no business getting done. Right.
Well, let's think about this, go back before the pandemic, and, every organization was working towards this digital transformation journey. And when the shutdown happened, I always say the journey turned into a sprint. People had to run to make things work. And so you had people working from home, working remotely with their laptops, maybe their personal laptops. It's not as secure. Maybe they have a low-end VPN or no VPN. So the challenges from a business continuity perspective really started to get exacerbated when you had potential exposure and hacks being able to take place in these insecure environments now. We went from a data center, we went from a very secure environment to a very secure network, to a very insecure home, to a very unstable network at home or at a coffee shop or fill in the blank, wherever you might be. And that presents a lot of challenges for IT.
Yeah, I would say that the lack of homogeneity in these network interfaces is, well, giving IT departments nightmares and ulcers as we speak, because it used to be that enterprise networking was pretty standard. It's one internet connection in the building and some wireless, and now I could be working with one of 5 or 6 different providers on multiple different speeds, and it just kind of becomes problematic. Now, Ian, I know that you're working from home across the pond, and even there, I'm sure that there are quite a few challenges, because when you also have to add in home connectivity, but you also have to figure out the fact that you may be working with people in different countries and different time zones, and that can be a challenge for you. How's it been in your part of the world?
Well, just to echo what David said, I mean, it's difficult moving to working from home. I mean, personally, myself, I've relished the challenge. It's made me more productive, but so where I work it's a service provider company, and the mentality of people going into lockdown, it was, do you want something right or right now? Do you want to do it right or right now? So what we found is people need to just jump on and get some kind of connectivity going right now. It's not necessarily the right way. And again, touching what David said, that's opening up a whole can of worms with the security wraparound and the moving the security boundary to the end users that are out there. And just another interesting point was, I don't know if you guys tuned into Microsoft Ignite this year, but one of Satya Nadella's points was we've seen 2 months worth of digital transformation, sorry, 2 years worth of digital transformation in the last 2 months. It's an interesting statistic.
I thought it was funny that there's a checklist now. It's like, what's driving your digital transformation? The stockholders, the CEO, or COVID? And most people are checking COVID now. So it's kind of fascinating, and we're having to play catch up really quickly. Now, Rohan, you not only work for VMware, but I'm sure you guys have been working from home, because I know that VMware has encouraged that. What are some of the challenges that you've been facing during the lockdown and trying to get business continuity going on your side of the fence?
I'm missing my office workspace. That's the first challenge I'm kind of facing. But yeah, with this lockdown, with this COVID situation, which has brought us a dramatic effect on our social life, and not only social life, but on our work also. So the enterprise have asked workers to kind of work from home, even for kids working from school. So I'm competing with my other family members for the bandwidth. I have a single internet connection, and then everybody in the morning gets on a Zoom call, from my 5-year-old boy to my spouse and to me. Everybody is competing for the bandwidth, quality of service, prioritizing applications, congestion on the circuits. And now that digital transformation, like you mentioned, the norms or the definition is changing for digital transformation. It is not just adoption of cloud for those applications or workloads. It's also the lockdown, the COVID situation, working from home or working from anywhere.
Yeah, I think that we're starting to see a massive shift, not just from a digital transformation perspective, but also the acceleration of cloud adoption. If I don't need to use an on-premises Exchange server or on-premises software anymore, and I can go to AWS and I can go to Azure and I can use those, do I really even need an office? And I think that kind of moves into our next topic area that I was kind of curious about. One way that we can ensure that work continues as normal from what we consider now to be our new edge, which is my house or your house, is making sure that the network has robust features, that has business-focused features, things that we've taken for granted for years in our enterprise. And one of the ways that I think that we can deliver that is through SD-WAN. Now, most of the people who have watched this podcast over the last couple of years know that SD-WAN is a very hot topic in networking, and it's really changed the way that we think about connecting headquarters locations and branch locations and cloud locations. But can SD-WAN help us here? Now, Rohan, you are an expert when it comes to SD-WAN because of the work that you do at VMware. So I want you to jump in here first, and maybe you can speak specifically about how VMware SD-WAN can help us address some of these challenges.
So definitely VMware SD-WAN can help with this, not only just a lockdown situation where we are working from home or working from anywhere, even with this cloud adoption which has happened, or the digital transformation which has been there for past couple of years, all the applications, the workloads, they have moved in the cloud. And there are enterprises who still have their workloads on-premise also. So accessing those applications on-prem or in cloud from branch or from anywhere with this lockdown situation becomes a challenge, and that's where SD-WAN comes to play. It helps you kind of protect your last mile from your home network or branch office to the cloud or to the internet where the public internet is. That's where the last mile protection comes to play. And with SD-WAN, it can provide you with all those magic like application performance, user experience. So if my one link goes down, which is a blackout condition or a brownout condition where the link conditions are changing 24/7, and SD-WAN is monitoring those link conditions at any given time, then it can make those decisions so that your application SLAs or the service SLAs are maintained. That's the key to SD-WAN. So whether you have a single link or multiple circuits, it can help you. It's a savior that comes to play with SD-WAN or VMware SD-WAN.
Awesome. Ian, do you have an SLA with your internet service provider?
I seriously doubt it. If it goes down, it's tough luck. I think it's consumer grade broadband. It's not a dedicated circuit to an office like I've been used to for the rest of my career. So if that line goes down, if I'm lucky, I'm switching to 4G and tethering from my phone. That's my backup line now. But just touching on what Rohan said, I mean, it is interesting now, and what you mentioned, Tom, about exchange services, mail access, things like that. Everything's becoming a lot more distributed. Exchange 2010 has gone end of life. That's pushing a lot of people down the exchange online route. So in a way, it helps, I guess, to access your core services like mail, because you're not having to backhaul back to well, not backhaul, but connect back to an office location to grab that. But everything's dispersed. You need something to stitch it together and make that work more effectively. And I think that's where SD-WAN plays a key part in this.
Yeah, I think that there was this massive land rush to get people up and running on VPN concentrators and VPN devices because, oh, well, we require you to have a VPN tunnel up in order to access your mail in the office. Well, then the VPN wasn't configured correctly because we all of a sudden have like 10 times the normal amount of traffic that's all flowing through our network. Oh, that's right, because now that we're at home, we popped up Netflix and we're tunneled into the corporate network. And so now there's some challenges. And I think that's right. Companies have started to look at, well, if Exchange and my other applications are kind of going EOL or, the bill's coming due and I need to upgrade, why don't I look at doing it in the cloud? And then I take that out of my network and I put it somewhere else, but I can still use something like an SD-WAN edge device to ensure connectivity, to ensure, application treatment so that my users aren't complaining that everything's running slow. I think it's a huge driver for things. David, in your experience, is that something that people are starting to adopt? They're starting to look at these new ideas?
Oh, sure. They have to. I want to go back on something you were talking about with SD-WAN. I remember in 2009, 2010, there were some people who were kind of making fun of the whole software-defined WAN, software-defined network, because we had software-defined everything. And you look at where we're at today, and it really is a lifeline. It's what a lot of organizations need to be able to overcome the challenges that we've been faced with this pandemic. But certainly, customers are looking at cloud. They're looking at a bunch of different offerings that allow them to continue to do business without having to have physical on-premises locations. Many of them, for the first 2 or 3 months, they couldn't even get their own employees in the data center to do any kind of operation. It was almost like pulling teeth. And that really presented a huge issue for many of these organizations. And so very, very quickly, as many of you said, very quickly, cloud had to be adopted. And now we're starting to find out, hey, cloud's really not that bad. I can actually get a lot more done. And I think the other thing we're finding out too, if we have the right structure, the infrastructure, the bones for our work at home employees, then we also have the opportunity to see greater productivity from our employees than we saw before. And I think that's a big thing that organizations are starting to realize, is that in fact, working from home is not less productive, it's more productive. And so making sure you have something that's secure, that's reliable and viable like SD-WAN behind it, I think is absolutely critical.
And David, a point that you picked up on there that I kind of want to draw out is this idea that our IT support staff is stretched thin as it is, and you can't just show up on site and hope to fix something. I mean, you're right. It's hard to get back in the data center. Those are critical trips anyway. Right. But are you going to send IT support to somebody's house to take a look at things? Are you even going to be able to troubleshoot? Okay, so you went to the local big box store and you bought the cheapest router that you could. You installed it in front of the cable modem. Okay, now I'm trying to figure out how we can get this thing to tunnel through. Whereas the flip side of that is to use something like SD-WAN, where I can have point of presence to every one of the devices that's on the edge. I can get in to troubleshoot it and see what's going on. I can say, you told me you have a 100 megabit circuit at home, but really what I'm seeing over it is, like 20 megabits. So you need to talk to your provider and see why that's happening. or there's a variety of different things that we can use for troubleshooting purposes. And Rohan, I think you want to jump in here and talk about this a little bit.
Sure. I don't want to miss the boat for SD-WAN. When we talk about the SD-WAN, it's not to be looked on just for application performance. It's like what David mentioned, extracting the complexity from that hardware, the software, because the whole premise around SD-WAN is it's based on the SDN principle, software-defined networking, where you are kind of segregating the management, the data plane, and the control plane. And if for a customer, let's say if it comes to VMware SD-WAN, the go-to market for that retail customer is quick, because they don't have to worry about the management plane, the orchestration, or the control plane. Where should I install the management station? I need to worry about the redundancy of that, the performance of that. The only thing they need to worry about is when we drop ship the edge device to their branch location, where should I put that edge device? Rest, then it works in a hosted environment like a cloud. So it's a win-win situation for both the side, for the SD-WAN vendor and the customer. And with this SD-WAN, it's kind of now just to pick up a quick retail use case at a retail branch location. When they have to bring up a retail site, they have stack of devices for each network function. For security, they have a device. For routing, they have a device. For wireless, they have a device. Now with SD-WAN, everything is consolidated into a single box, and SD-WAN edge device can function for routing, security, and then WAN optimization, SD-WAN, everything all together. So you are removing that complexity and that IT support which you just talked about, that you are now managing your network from the cloud, from the orchestrator. So it becomes very simple.
Yeah, I can remember some of the original case studies on SD-WAN. They were talking about being able to drop ship a box to a retail location, and anybody can plug it in with the right directions, and we can turn up 10 of these a night. And we never thought we were going to have to multiply that by like 100 and send it to people who are like, okay, well, I think this cable fits here, but I don't know. And so I think that ease of use, ease of provisioning, ease of management is just a huge feather in the cap of SD-WAN being something that we should look at installing, in our new edge locations. Now, one of the things that I do want to talk about here, it kind of focuses on the network connectivity piece. Now, in a business, I can order different circuits to terminate inside the building. And in a good case, we definitely want more than one of those. Maybe we want one circuit providing basic internet and one circuit providing some kind of a private service that allows data to flow over a secure connection or something like that. Well, that works at a business. At my house, I may have the choice between one provider and one provider. And so, when we talk about things like business continuity and the ability to work from home, that's not something that is really feasible for us. However, is there a way for SD-WAN to kind of help us out in some specific cases where our home doesn't necessarily have redundant circuits, or maybe even where the ISP equipment is kind of like unconfigurable up front? Now, Rohan, I want you to talk about this a little bit, and then I want to come back to something Ian had said earlier about backup connectivity.
Yes, like I mentioned with the SD-WAN, with VMware SD-WAN, even when you have a single circuit, it can help you not only just from those blackout, not the blackout, but at least the brownout condition. Because if there is a blackout condition, the link is down, you have a single link, no SD-WAN, no other technology can help you out. You just have to call your service provider. But when you have a brownout condition, when there are latency, jitter, packet loss on your network, application like Zoom or game or any other application will suffer. Especially our enterprise grade applications will suffer. And that's where VMware SD-WAN comes to play, where it kind of continuously monitors the circuit. It knows the health of the circuit, and at any given time when this condition happens, it can react to those situations. So the key to SD-WAN is to detect these situations in a timely manner so that it can take some measures out there. And that's where forward error correction, jitter buffering, all those techniques are in place. I don't have time today. Otherwise, I would have gone with the DMPO, which is the dynamic multipath optimization. But the key here is, yes, with single circuit, you can remediate situations for your real-time traffic. But when you have multiple circuits at home, which is not a common use case, but after the lockdown, when I'm talking to customers, I've been seeing this, that enterprise customers are now having multiple circuits, even their second circuits as an LTE circuit. which they use as a backup. But with multiple circuits, these things really work out. The application performance really works out, and that's where SD-WAN comes to play. The key thing with one of the key thing with SD-WAN, with VMware SD-WAN, is the cloud gateway architecture, which is sitting in the cloud, which really helps you kind of optimize the SaaS traffic, the SaaS applications which is in the cloud. With VMware SD-WAN, it can kind of redirect the traffic from your home location to these gateways which are around the globe, and which are kind of milliseconds. These gateways are strategically placed in those core facilities where the SaaS providers are, like Salesforce or Office 365. So we are kind of milliseconds away from there. So that's the biggest use case for VMware SD-WAN when it comes to cloud adoption.
So Ian, when we were talking about this earlier, you said that, sometimes you may run into a situation where your primary link goes down, and there's something that you said you do to fall back if you have to get connected. Do you recall what you had talked about?
Yes, that was firing up the tethering capability on my mobile phone or cell phone and relying on a 4G connection. And I'll admit, I've had to do that a couple of times. Broadband has dropped, or even if we're talking about brownouts, I know a couple of us have mentioned this on the call already. Like when my kids came home from school yesterday, Netflix was on. I was like, why is my Teams call dropped? Do a quick speed check. I'm down to 1 megabits per second. I switch over to the phone because it's at that point a more reliable connection.
And that's one of the things that I love about SD-WAN is that depending on the configuration and connectivity options on the edge unit, you can create circuit diversity, kind of like you have done, Ian, with having a 4G LTE backup link. Or maybe you find in a situation where it's like, okay, well, the kids have jumped on Netflix and I need bandwidth. I can have my traffic fail over to the 4G LTE link, run concurrently, but completely separate from what other things are going on in the house. And I can create that kind of environment. And I don't have to spend a whole lot of extra money on hardware. I don't have to get creative in configuration. It's just something that is available. And honestly, even if you never turn it on, it's a good option to have just in case.
I think that's a great point, Tom, you brought up for prioritizing the applications for home. Here at home, I'm competing against my family members for the bandwidth with my kids who are playing game, or if they are on a Zoom call, I'm competing against. And that's where SD-WAN kind of really shines in, where it can prioritize those applications with smart defaults, which are already built in. It knows that this is my real-time application, this is my bulk, or this is my low priority, and the low priority application should not just take over all the bandwidth. So that's where SD-WAN, that's one more use case for an SD-WAN.
Tom, this changes the whole idea of take your kids to work, right? Your kids are always there at work, and that, like you're saying, you're competing with them. And for people that are listening that are saying, yeah, I get it, sounds good, I'll just go with business class. Let me tell you, I had business class at my house for 2 years, and my performance and the reliability of business class service, and I won't tell you who the provider was no better than the consumer grade that I had. So if you're thinking you can get by doing something else, that would be a good enough solution. Well, as soon as you drop that link, as soon as that link is not available, as soon as you can't get your work done and be productive, you'll be thinking we should have gone with the SD-WAN solution.
And that's actually one of the questions that keeps coming up when people start using SD-WAN is, why am I keeping this, business class link that has an SLA? And especially if they're not meeting it, because now I have the ability to say, well, your circuit was down, 5 hours last month, which violates your SLA. But also I can use a commodity broadband circuit with a backup link and get as good or better performance for half the cost. And that could be something that businesses are looking at saying, okay, well, if that's the case, we don't need to provide you with this assured connectivity. You can do best effort with some optimization pieces and get a faster link out of it. Maybe you need to bump your speeds up a little bit, but because SD-WAN is allowing us to do traffic selection and all these other things, effectively you are working on a corporate network while all of the other traffic in your house is isolated and not affecting the way that you work.
I think very right, Tom, here. If I go back 10 years back, I call it IT 1.0, where you have multiple circuits at enterprise, but then they are in primary, secondary, or active standby mode. Only one circuit is always on all the time, and all the critical applications are going through one circuit. But those norms have changed with SD-WAN. Whether you have a single circuit, 2 or 4 circuits, all the circuits are active all the time, and SD-WAN is monitoring all those circuits 24/7. And if there are any condition changes, even during flight for your application traffic, SD-WAN can take care of it.
All right. Well, it sounds to me like the real answer is that we need to stop treating our homes like a house. If we're working here, this is work. And so we need to provide some kind of an enterprise feature set for our working from home. Now, luckily, we have been developing this for a number of years, and we already have something that fits the bill, and that's SD-WAN, whether it allows us to prioritize traffic, provide instant backup links, or even just tell our providers that they're not doing what they're supposed to. If you're a business owner that's out there and you want to increase your employees' productivity, don't rush out and buy them a new expensive mesh office chair. Don't worry about trying to upgrade their keyboard. Go out and buy them an SD-WAN box. If you do that, I think you're going to find that their lives are going to be better. They're going to be more productive. Your life is going to be easier. And overall, I think everyone's just going to be a little bit happier as we find ourselves working from home and dealing with the joys of, well, home networking. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today, especially Rohan from VMware. It was a great discussion, and I hope everyone out there in the audience got something out of it. If you'd like to check out more episodes of our podcast, please head over to gestaltit.com/podcast. You can always find the latest episode there. You can also find us in iTunes or your favorite podcast application of choice. We always appreciate ratings and reviews because that helps people find episodes of the podcast. And we'd like to thank our friends from VMware for joining in today. Rohan, if people want to find out a little bit more information about VMware SD-WAN, where should they go?
So they can go to velocloud.com, or when they go to vmware.com, they can search for VMware SD-WAN, and they can find out all the information related to SD-WAN, working from home, and even working from anywhere using VMware SD-WAN.
All right. And as a note for people out there wondering, velocloud.com, because VMware SD-WAN is the solution set formerly known as VeloCloud. So for Tom Hollingsworth, for Rohan and our friends from VMware, and for the other panelists who have joined us today, thank you very much for listening to the Gestalt IT on-premise IT Roundtable, and we look forward to having more great discussions with you in the future.